Hey there, Megan Jansen here with Employee Wellness Solutions Network. I'm still on a year-long mission to talk to as many professionals as I can in the space of employee and corporate wellness. I've tracked down a very busy lady, Jennifer Arnold. She's the owner of Redesigning Wellness in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes of your busy day to talk to me.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, Megan. And please call me Jen.
Jen, you got it. You got it. You've been in this industry a long time as well, for a long time, talking and learning and speaking with leaders and wellness and program components and all sorts of things. Physical wellness and physical health is something that we're seeing in our workplaces. It does deteriorate over time, and people, we're finding some of those issues with obesity and diabetes and so many different things. We can't necessarily take it lightly though, when we have to get away from simple solutions. So what do you mean by that?
So whenever I talk about the stuff that we do today, it's all the stuff that I've done in my world as a practitioner. So I'm not laying blame or pointing fingers. It's just something that we commonly do as wellness professionals. I am a trained dietitian. So oftentimes, physical health is at front and center of wellness, right? So we're either talking about exercise or we're talking about diet. And a lot of times we say it is a knowledge factor. Like people don't have the right knowledge. So we need to tell them that they need to eat a little bit less and exercise a little bit more. Give them rewards and incentives for accomplishing things. But obviously that's not working because we're still continuing to deteriorate in our physical health, right? So if we could then really think a bigger picture about what are the things that get in people's way, right? There's a lot of emotional things going on. There are ways that we cope with food, cope with alcohol. We don't exercise when we're really busy and stressed out, really when we need to, but we don't. But then also mentally, we have a lot of thoughts that get in our way of going to really be physically well. So instead of thinking just about, I need to give my employees more knowledge, right? Another cheat sheet of what they need to do for meal planning or, benefits of exercise, thinking about maybe what are some barriers are getting in their way. And then also just thinking about the smallest step. Because again, if we are many of us, right? Many of us like to exercise. Most of us eat pretty well as wellness practitioners. And so if we could get outside of our own perspective and say, yeah, not everyone loves to go run 5 miles. So how can we think about them and start at the very smallest step? And I have heard even from healthy people within an organization that aren't wellness people, but they're like, that's too easy. Why are we making it so easy for people to, be successful? God forbid.
Yeah.
Instead, really just think about what is the smallest step that they can have a little bit of success and then get them to that next step instead of setting the bar so high and
building on it. Sorry to interrupt, but building on those small successes definitely got people motivated, hopefully, to do more. So start where they are.
Exactly. Exactly. And then when you even think about one more point on this is just what we do with weight management or weight loss. And weight loss is just such a complicated, it's just a complicated issue. I don't know if that's really the right word, but we just tell people here's a diet or here's the latest fad diet and think that's going to work long term. But really there's so much deeper to food. And it's oftentimes tied to a lot of emotions. So we need to, I just say back away from weight management completely, but that's
totally. Totally. And I think when we're talking about workplace wellness initiatives and program components, I think it's a better idea to stay away from that as well. I think there's a piece around healthy weight for you and promotion of having a healthy weight for other reasons, but really dwelling on weight loss is just, it's not the way, it used to be something that, you saw challenges and all these different TV shows about, but now we're talking about it just not being the way to promote a healthy message when it comes to that.
Well, I think that's getting a little bit into more of the mainstream. Maybe people are talking about it, but I still see it pretty prevalent in, work sites and practitioners, right? We can't let go of that. That's very ingrained. So we need much more than 10 minutes to talk about that.
Oh yeah, I know. Maybe part B for sure. Yeah. There are also several, when we're looking at an organization, there are several different factors that really influence somebody's well-being. And let's talk about a few of those. In your perspective, your thoughts about really what are the main players here?
Yeah, there are so many players, and I think this is a place that I don't want to discourage wellness professionals, right? Because there's good news coming. Like it's not all your responsibility, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but when we look at it as simple, then we're missing out all the other factors. Stress is one, and one big stressor for a lot of employees is their manager, right?
Mm.
So I think everyone knows that Gallup stat that managers are responsible for 70% of the of the variance with employee engagement, right? There's
Yep.
another stat that 3 out of 4 people report that their boss is the worst and most stressful part of their work day. I mean, it's right there, right? And then there's actually a link to a poor relationship with your boss. You are 30% more likely to have coronary artery disease. So management is a key one. And when we think about it, we can have a wellness program that people have to go participate in outside of their work, but every day for 8+ hours, they're probably having some interaction with their boss.
Mm.
And so if we're not really thinking about that relationship, then I think that's a miss. I think we need to kind of expand our thoughts there. And there's also some newer research or newer associations being looked at between job control and mortality. So there was a recent article, it was a meta-analysis, and I'm not a research nerd, so please, if you
No,
we're
it's
not
great.
even get into all of the pieces and parts of it, but what they found was that workers with low job control had a higher risk of mortality and
Mm.
all-cause mortality and coronary artery disease as well. So, or heart disease rather. So when we look at that, if you have high control over your job, you're more likely to be healthy than if you have a low control of your job, right? So these are the factors that are kind of coming to light now. And there's the other things, that are now in the news all the time. Social determinants of health, right?
Mm.
That is a big one. ACEs, childhood trauma. So it's just, that's when we say that this issue of health is so complex, and the organization, when you're being asked, hey, we need to do a stress management program on, like,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
We need to do some of that stuff, but how do you account for the stress that the organization is causing itself? And then secondly, how do you give tools to employees to help them communicate and speak up for themselves as well?
I think those are really valid, definitely valid remarks about how do we bring this back to the workplace and what are some of those main influencers really in someone's well-being. I think it's important to know what they are. And I think there are commonalities among every organization for certain. There are unique qualities, but we are finding more and more that, I mean, stress, mental illness, mental health, mental wellness. I mean, there's so many different aspects of stress. So I think stress is such an umbrella word anymore, but it really does come down to trying to pinpoint some of those possible challenges and how do you really bring light to them. And maybe I'll ask that question. How, as wellness professionals, would you recommend bringing light to some of those specific challenges? Or if workplaces are seeing this and they have an internal wellness champion team, what would be maybe some thoughts pertaining to maybe helping their colleagues or bringing light to some of these concerns? What do you think about that?
Yeah, such a good question because it's very complex, right? Because you're not going to go into your organization and say, hey, we got bad bosses around here and you're causing some
For
problems
sure,
with
for
well-being.
sure, for
Um,
sure.
but I have gone in organizations and talked to teams of leaders to say, here's the connection, right? And the funny thing is, I've seen a lot of light bulbs go on, but I think what they're doing is thinking about their boss. I don't even think they're thinking to that ripple effect that they have on their employees. So I think it is connecting the dots for them to say, if you want to engage people, you want productive people, here are some ways that you can actually tap into their strengths,
Mhm.
show them that they're valued, some very simple things. So I think for wellness professionals, there's probably a few things. One is to understand, right? To understand that there are connections and look at some of that research, because there is research on both of the angles I just talked about. So that's understanding it, right? I think two is sharing it in a non-threatening way. So people aren't going, oh, okay, we don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You go tell the employer that, hey, high job control, they're going to be like, forget it. We need people to just do what we tell them to do. So sharing it in a way that is not putting people on the defensive, which takes some talent to do. But I think third is really to collaborate across the organization. Like if anything, like partner with learning and development, organizational development, anyone who is really responsible for developing new hires, retaining, any of those other functions within HR, be their best friends. Say, what are you trying to accomplish? How can I help you?
Which leads me to my final point of creating those relationships, and business priorities really go hand in hand, I feel, when we're wanting success with wellness. Those relationships are critical.
They are. We tend to miss the mark there. And I say we because I know I have done it in the past, where we get so laser focused on what we're trying to accomplish, the spreadsheet, the program, the report. We forget to go walk around and go, who do I need to talk to today? What relationship do I need to build? Because that will help you be a lot more successful than building that spreadsheet.
And then in turn, I mean, helping the business priorities as well. If that's one of the angles of, again, organizations need to be thinking about talent and retention, attraction, and bottom line and all of this. So if we can have a well culture and health focused, people focused culture, it really will jive.
Yeah, and we're talking about business priorities. I was just talking to a wellness professional the other day, I think, about this specific topic, because when we think about wellness, we think, get the most thriving workforce and flourishing. So we want everyone to be kind of like great and feeling fantastic when they walk into work, right? And then the organization is saying, really, we want to save money.
Yeah.
So instead of maybe using the language we're so used to using, how can we really just go, okay, what are the business priorities? Like truly understanding them, whether it's finances or whether it's getting the best people. We're having a talent shortage. And then connecting wellness to that, instead of expecting our business leaders to come down and understand what the heck we're talking about.
Well said. That's the first time I've heard of it that way. I learned something too. That's excellent. That's awesome. Jen, I could talk to you all day about this. We do share a common passion of what we do. But to tie up, any final thoughts you'd like to add before we tie up today?
I think Worksite Wellness is in a very exciting time right now. I think there's new paths that we can forge as wellness professionals. I think we can expand our roles, and I definitely think we can expand and kind of up the value of wellness if we're willing to take some risks, build some new relationships, and get a little bit uncomfortable. But it's an exciting time right now.
I concur. Jen, thank you so much for chatting today from Redesigning Wellness. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.